Today's topic is thyroid, breast and varicose vein together. All these topics you will learn in great detail in surgery, but there are medical implications of thyroid, breast and varicose vein. That is why we are considering this topic under medicine too. First, the thyroid diseases. I am going to discuss this thyroid under these headings: definition, some basic points, causes, physical examination, functional status, other signs, confirmation, difficulties, red flags. Any enlargement of thyroid is called goiter. There are physiological and pathological causes for goiter. Pathologically, there can be uniform enlargement of thyroid, but there can be localized or irregular enlargement of thyroid. There can be a thyroid nodule. There can be even multiple nodules there in the thyroid, what is called multinodular goiter. This is the gross anatomy of the thyroid gland and consists of two lobes. Each lobe is having an apex and base. There are three surfaces and two borders, and these two lobes are connected by an isthmus which is having two surfaces and two borders, as shown there in the slide. This slide depicts the functions of the thyroid gland. Thyroid gland produces two functionally effective hormones, namely T3 and T4. In the gland, T3 is only 20%, but mainly constituted by T4, that is the way it is stored there in the thyroid gland. But in the target tissue, the T4 will be converted to T3 by 5' iodinase enzyme, and therefore in the tissue majority of the hormone will be T3. It constitutes 80%. The thyroid hormone, they travel there in the blood along with the thyroid binding globulin, and this thyroid binding globulin will be produced by the liver, and therefore decreased production of thyroid binding globulin can be there in liver diseases. Next we will discuss the synthesis of thyroid hormones. They are occurring inside and outside the follicular cells, and it is happening in 7 steps. In step 1, there will be intrafollicular synthesis of thyroglobulin protein, and second step, there will be a transport of iodide along with the sodium by an energy consuming natrium iodide synport. Then inside the cell, the iodide radical will be oxidized to iodine, and this iodine will be moving into the colloid that is remaining outside the cell, and this iodine will combine with the thyroglobulin, and this is what is called organification of iodine. And with the help of thyroid peroxidase enzyme, iodide that is joining with the tyrosine moiety of thyroglobulin and forming what is called the monoiodothyronine and diiodothyronine. These two thyronine, again with the help of thyroid peroxidase enzyme, will be making T3 and T4 along with monoiodo and diiodothyronine, and these are all in combination to the thyroglobulin molecule. This molecule will be endocytosed again into the follicular cells, and from this combination, the T3 and T4 will be removed by the action of a protease enzyme acting on this thyroglobulin attached molecule, and this free T3 and T4 will be circulating there in the blood along with the thyroid binding globulin. The mono and diiodothyronine again will be recycled back for the further incorporation of the MIT, DIT, T3 and T4. They control the synthesis of new protein and has widespread activity in the body. They act in synergistic with the growth hormone, increase the oxygen consumption, thereby increasing the basal metabolic rate and temperature. It also increases the cardiac output and ventilation. During childhood, during fetal life and neonate, it will facilitate the maturation of the central nervous system, and in adulthood it maintains the function of the central nervous system. And therefore you get two disease conditions, namely hypothyroidism due to decreased availability of thyroid hormone, and hyperthyroidism due to excess availability of the thyroid hormone. This picture shows the gross anatomy of the thyroid. It's a butterfly-like gland, each lobe weighing 15 to 25 grams, and it will come to the size of the distal digits of the thumb. This slide see the thyroid gland that will synthesize, store and secrete the thyroid hormone. As already mentioned, the cubical epithelium extract iodide from blood and they concentrate it. That is what is called iodide trapping, and then the trapped iodide will be converted into iodine through what is called oxidization with the help of peroxidase enzyme, and this organification of iodine is producing the organification of iodine with the tyrosine will result into the diiodothyronine and monoiodothyronine. They again combine with the help of thyroperoxidase enzyme forming tetraiodothyronine and triiodothyronine, otherwise T4 and T3, and they remain stored there in the colloid. As and when it is required, the protein splitting enzyme releases T3 and T4 and that diffuses into the circulation. Now, the thyroglobulin, as mentioned earlier, is being synthesized by the follicular cells, and each thyroglobulin molecule is having the capacity to store 10 thyroid hormone molecule in it. There is a hypothalamo-pituitary thyroid axis, and there is the hypothalamus will control the anterior pituitary, and the anterior pituitary again control the thyroid gland through TRH and TSH, and the thyroid hormone homeostasis is maintained through feedback inhibition as shown there in this slide. Causes of goiter, simple non-toxic goiter, that is the simple hyperplastic goiter. Second, the multinodular goiter. Toxic goiter can be a diffuse goiter, as in the case of Graves' disease, or it can be a single toxic nodule, or can be a toxic multinodular goiter. Autoimmune cause for goiter is the Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Other causes of goiter, the neoplastic causes or benign causes. The benign, it is the adenoma. Neoplastic one, in the malignant one, as papillary, follicular, anaplastic, medullary carcinoma of the thyroid, and the lymphoma can also arise from thyroid. Inflammatory causes for goiter is de Quervain's thyroiditis and Edel's thyroiditis. Now, see, we have to remember 4 boundaries when you are going to palpate the thyroid gland, and these boundaries are: 1. The cricoid cartilage superiorly, and inferiorly the suprasternal notch, and 2 carotid arteries lying on either sides. Now, the thyroid gland you can inspect, and even if you are not seeing anything abnormal there in the neck, and the patient is looking straight ahead, it is better to recognize the enlarged goiter by asking the patient to extend the neck and swallowing saliva. This method of this is known to unmask a mildly enlarged goiter and this mildly enlarged thyroid, and this is what is called the Pesalos method for inspecting the thyroid. Even without doing the neck extension, sometimes diffuse enlargement may be obvious, as shown there in the slide. But in some situations, you can see a non-uniform enlargement of the goiter, as shown there in the slide, and this is usually seen in adenoma thyroid. Sometimes on inspection, the goiter will be very marked and the surface may look irregular, as in the case of large multinodular goiter. After that, it is the palpation. The palpation of the thyroid gland, it is better to do the palpation in the sitting position of the patient, and the examiner should stand behind, as shown there in the slide. Both hands, the examiner should place over the neck by keeping the thumb always there in the back. With one hand, press one lobe of the thyroid, and with the other hand, you have to palpate the thyroid gland. And after palpating one lobe from above downward, then you have to repeat the test by pressing the opposite side and repeating the same thing for the other lobe. And after that, it is important to palpate the isthmus. Sometimes when there is a midline small swelling, when you are keeping the hand there in the middle, it is better to ask the patient to protrude the tongue out, so that see whether this swelling is moving when the patient is protruding the tongue, and then this is the finding usually seen in thyroglossal cyst. Thyroid palpation also can be done by standing the examiner in the front of the patient, as shown there in the slide. One lobe of the thyroid should be pressed to the opposite side, and with the other pulp of the finger have to palpate one entire lobe from above downwards. Similarly, you have to repeat the other lobe palpation too by pressing the opposite side to the as mentioned. After palpating the thyroid gland, you have to palpate the cervical lymph node. The thyroid gland will be drained by deep vertical chain of lymph node, and therefore you have to palpate beneath the sternocleidomastoid. This palpation can be done from the front as shown there in the slide, or you can do this palpation from behind as well as shown there in this slide. After the palpation, I have to percuss to find out the lower limit of the thyroid by percussing over the sternum. This is very, very important because this is the one physical sign by which you can say whether there is a retrosternal extension of the goiter. The sternum is usually resonant. If it is still, you have to consider a retrosternal goiter. After that, you have to do auscultation because some of the thyroid enlargements are highly vascular, as in the case of malignancy, and you have to look for a thyroid bruit. And this thyroid bruit is a long murmur filling the systole and extending to the diastole. And don't get it confused with that ejection systolic murmur arising the aortic valve and extending to the carotid. In retrosternal large goiter, that may cork that thoracic inlet, and when the patient is keeping both upper limb along the side of ears, there can be corking up of the thoracic inlet and making obstruction to the superior vena cava, and therefore the patient may get a suffused, cyanosed face, or sometimes he may even develop stridor. This is what is called the Pemberton sign. When the thyroid is palpable, assess the following aspects too. 1. The size of the lobes, symmetry of the lobe, surface, whether it is regular or irregular, or whether there is only a single node or a large mass, as in the case of adenoma or malignancy. And you have to next look for the consistency. If it is stony hard, that's a point in favor of malignancy. Next, you have to see whether there is any tenderness or not. And in thyroiditis, the thyroid will be tender. And next, when you are keeping the hand also over the vascular mass, you can feel the thrill over it, and never forget to see the opposite lobe as well as the cervical lymph node enlargement. There is a WHO grading of the goiter. Grade 0, neither palpable nor visible goiter. Grade 1A, goiter detected only by palpation, and grade 1B, goiter palpable and visible with the neck extended. Grade 2, goiter visible with the neck in the normal position, and grade 3, goiter will be visible from even a long distance. Now, when you are assessing the thyroid, never forget to assess the thyroid functional status. Usually, the thyroid function may be normal, that is euthyroid. Occasionally, this patient may be in hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, and therefore it is better to discuss what are the signs of hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. Signs of hypothyroidism are hair loss, inability to think clearly, that is what is called fogging of mind, goiter, reduced heart rate, that is what bradycardia, strong fatigue, sensitivity to cold, dry skin, weight gain, puffiness, memory problem, constipation, irregular menses, usually menorrhagia, severe premenstrual symptoms, depression, mood swing, joint muscle pain, high cholesterol. These are the reasons. And you may wonder why this lady's picture is given here. See, because thyroid diseases are more common there in female, and that too in reproductory age group, that hypothyroidism. And hyperthyroidism signs are hair loss, exophthalmos or bulging of eyes, goiter, palpitation, and usually along with that there will be tachycardia, sometimes irregular pulse, tremors, heat intolerance, sleep disturbances, weight loss, shortness of breath, diarrhea, increased appetite, irregular menstrual period, muscle weakness, sweating, anxiety, nervousness, depression, and mood swing. Sometimes by looking at the patient from a distance, you can detect hyperthyroidism, as in the case of Graves' disease as shown there in the picture. There is a tear here there in the eyes, and there is a diffusely enlarged goiter, and the patient is losing weight. Others, it is better to discuss the other signs in Graves' disease. There are the Stelzner sign, that is the staring look and infrequent blinking. Then it is the Dalrymple sign. Rimmo sclera is seen all around the cornea when the patient is looking straight forward. Then the Rosenbach sign, fine tremor of the upper eyelid on slight closure of eyes. Joffre sign, lack of wrinkling of the forehead and the patient looks upward. The Mobius sign, lack of convergence on looking to a near object. Then von Graefe sign, that is the lid lag sign, lagging of the upper eyelid on looking downward without moving the head. This is a prominent stare, and you can see there is a clear rim of sclera seen throughout the cornea, and therefore there is Stelzner sign and Dalrymple sign there in this picture. And you have to don't forget to see, when you are seeing the Graves' disease, never forget to examine the legs. Sometimes there can be pretibial mixed edema, and the patient may show clubbing, that is what is called thyroid acropathy. But you may not see any of the distinguishing features of Graves' disease in secondary hyperthyroidism, and therefore it is easy to miss secondary hyperthyroidism. The face may look normal except a mild lid retraction. There will be tachycardia, and pulse you often is irregular, and atrial fibrillation is also not uncommon. And the facies in hypothyroidism is also characteristic as shown in these photos. There is a puffy face and coarse features, and he is having a depressed facies. All are features of hypothyroidism. Here again puffy face, and you have to consider hypothyroidism when you are seeing the patient face alone. Other signs you have to look for in a case of goiter are already mentioned: the face puffy in the case of hypothyroidism, anxious there in the case of hyperthyroidism, pulse bradycardia in the case of hypothyroidism, tachycardia and irregular pulse in the case of hyperthyroidism, built obese in the case of hypothyroidism because of the accumulation of mixed matter tissue throughout the body, emaciation in the case of hyperthyroidism. Hand will be cold in the case of hypothyroidism, but there will be warm sweat and tremor in the case of hypothyroidism, in addition to clubbing that we already discussed. Leg in hypothyroidism usually will be there will be pitting, and initially it will be a pitting pedal edema. When the patient is having frank mixed edema, then the edema will be non-pitting. Bulky cough also a sign of hypothyroidism, again infiltration with the myxomatous tissue, and therefore that is a prominent bulky cough when you are observing the patient leg from behind is also an important sign of hypothyroidism, and this is known as Hoffman sign. Next, pretibial mixed edema of hyperthyroidism there in hyperthyroidism. Then the tendon reflex, that the ankle reflex is also important. There will be delayed relaxation in the case of hypothyroidism, and in the case of hyperthyroidism, ankle jerk will be brisk. The confirmation of the thyroid function and the goiter, we have to do a set of investigation, free T3, free T4, TSH, that is mainly for assessing the thyroid status of the patient, thyroid function status of the patient. Next, USG neck, next X-ray chest behavior to see whether there is any retrosternal extension. The thyroid scintigraphy, it is known to give the thyroid tissue, and also this will make out the ectopic thyroid tissue as well. Then FNA study when the goiter. Then the other test, it is the especially thyroiditis, it is better to look for thyroid auto antibodies, as in the case of like anti-thyroglobulin antibody, anti-thyroperoxidase antibody. You should remember few related terms. One is the cretinism. Cretinism, it is the occurring during fetal life and also the neonatal life. Mixed edema in the frank hypothyroidism, where you get a swollen limb that will be non-pitting on pressing. Then in hypothyroidism, marked mixed edema, patient may become unconscious, that is what is called mixed edema coma. In hypothyroidism, there will be marked arm function changes in psychiatric problem, that is what is called mixed edema madness. And in hypothyroidism, there will be hyperthyroidism, there will be sudden excess release of a thyroid hormone producing marked widespread manifestation of sympathetic overactivity. This is what is called thyroid storm or thyroid crisis. Next topic, it is the breast. Breast involvement is common in systemic illnesses, and disease of the breast also known to make systemic manifestation. Both ways, the breast examination is important in medicine. Examination of female breast, this topic will be mainly covered in surgery, but we have to mention few basic points. Inspection of the breast is very important. Inspection of the breast as well as the areola, you have to do in 4 position. First position, sitting up with the arms resting on the thighs. Second position, arm pressing against the hip. Third position, sitting and arms keeping along the side of ears. And fourth position, sitting and leaning forward position to inspect the breast and the areola. Best position for palpation, supine position with the arm on the side of examination placed as pillow beneath the head. Lie on the opposite shoulder and keeping hand over the forehead. Next, palpate beneath the areola, nipple, and axillary tailorspens. Palpation you have to do in a clockwise manner in a circular way from the periphery towards the nipple, and it is important to palpate the opposite breast, and findings should be compared. Palpation of the lymph node there in the axilla and neck are also very important. Common symptoms are breast lump or mass in the breast pain or discomfort, nipple discharge, nipple retraction, skin changes over the areola and the breast, galactorrhea. Then it is in the case of male patient, gynecomastia. Common breast diagnoses are fibroadenoma, cyst there in the breast, fibrocystic diseases, carcinoma of the breast, mastitis, breast abscesses. Now, gynecomastia. Enlargement of male breast is gynecomastia, can be physiological, as in the case of neonate and puberty. It can be pathological as well. And you have to do again the male breast also. You have to inspect and palpate. And the subareolar mound of breast tissue is a point in favor of gynecomastia. Can be tender or sometimes non-tender. Can be unilateral, sometimes can be bilateral. This is a bilateral symmetrical gynecomastia, and this is a unilateral gynecomastia seen during puberty. It need not be unilateral, it can be bilateral, even it can be bilateral asymmetrical. Common causes of gynecomastia, again physiological, newborn and puberty, androgen deficiency, as in the case of Klinefelter syndrome, that is trisomy X. Then it is the Kallmann syndrome, that is the combination of hypogonadism plus anosmia. Then congenital absence of the testis, that is what is called congenital anarchia. Next, androgen resistance, that can be tissue resistance to the antigen, defect in testosterone biosynthesis, and acquired testicular failure, as in the case of mumps or chitis. Then estrogen secreting tumors, human choreotropic hormone secreting tumors, drugs, decompensated liver diseases, and idiopathic causes are also there for gynecomastia. And it's important to see some of the drugs known to produce gynecomastia. They are estrogen, for example, given for the treatment of prostatic cancer, cyproterone, spironolactone, given in the case of heart failure as well as cirrhosis of liver with marked ascites, or can be nephrotic syndrome, cimetidine, digitalis, isoflurane, amphetamine, tricyclic antidepressant, and cannabis. One difficulty in obese individual, the fat accumulate beneath the breast area, and the breast may apparently looking prominent, and it is difficult to make out from gynecomastia. But you have to look for subareolar mound of breast tissue. Subareolar mound of breast tissue will be palpable in the case of true gynecomastia, but it will be absent in the case of lipomastia. Lipomastia also can occur in elderly male due to the post-involutional fat redistribution, meaning you see, following the involution of gonadal function, there will be redistribution of fat there in the body towards the trunk of the body, including the breast area, and therefore a prominent fat accumulation may appear as a gynecomastia. Confirmation by ultrasonography of the breast, mammography, FNA, excision biopsy, and the radiological studies like X-ray chest and difficult cases to see whether there is any spread of the disease of the breast inside the thorax, to do sometimes CT thorax as well. Next topic, it is the varicose vein. Varicose vein is the dilated and tortuous vein, or the varicose vein, usually seen there in the lower limb. The exact cause of varicose vein is not known, but it is due to the failure of the valves, that is the incompetent valve in the venous system, mainly responsible for varicose vein. It can be there in the superficial vein, can be there in the deep vein, sometimes can be there in the perforators connecting the superficial one with the deep vein. This can occur singly or in multiple combination and resulting in varicose vein. The risk factors for developing varicose veins are inheritance, because it is known to run there in families, prolonged standing, as in the case of police and other service personnel, pregnancy, previous venous obstruction, and other risk factors. Examination, again, the inspection in the standing position, and you have to inspect both the lower limbs from the front as well as from the back. And the lying down position, you can see this varicose vein, but when you are keeping the limb 15-degree elevated position, most of the time from the rate of emptying of the vein will give an idea whether the patient is having varicosity or not. The definite sign, useful sign, is the Trendelenburg test. Elevate the lower limb to empty the vein as mentioned earlier, with the thumb occluding the saphenofemoral junction, that is 2 to 3 cm below and outer to the pubic tubercle, and with the thumb in position, you have to ask the patient to stand and watch for refill of the vein. If refilling is not occurring, remove the thumb and observe the refill. If the refilling is occurring only on removing the thumb, that's a point in favor of that failure of the saphenofemoral junction valve. Otherwise, if there is refilling with the thumb remaining there in the pressed position, is a point in favor of incompetent perforator. Varicosity, see, you can see the whole lower limb, that the medial aspect, you are getting a dilated tortuous vein, and therefore this is the varicosity of the long saphenous system. The short saphenous system you have to see from the front, and usually it be more varicosity there in the feet, as shown there in the slide. Complications of varicose vein: chronic venous insufficiency and pigmentation on the skin, varicose eczema, lipodermatosclerosis, and ulcer there in the leg around the malleoli. And this slide shows the brown pigmentation. This is due to the venous insufficiency. This brown pigmentation is due to the leaking of blood from the vascular territory and depositing, oozing blood outside the vasculature and producing hemosiderin pigmentation. That's the reason for getting the brown pigmentation. And this picture is showing the lipodermatosclerosis, the Development of hypodermatosclerosis is multifactorial, involving tissue hypoxia, leakage of protein into the interstitium, and leukocyte activation. Capillaries there in this area virtually absent in the area of fibrotic scar, leading to a condition known as atrophy blanche, or what is called livedoid vasculopathy. This is again a typical leg appearance in the case of lipodermatosclerosis, and it is known to produce a tapering of the legs above the ankle, forming a constriction bundle resembling a champagne bottle leg. Strictly speaking, it is the inverted champagne bottle appearance, and this is due to the constriction there in the subcutaneous tissue and making the soft tissue remaining above this level, and this is a typical appearance of lipodermatosclerosis. This picture is showing telangiectasia, that is a small venule will be standing out prominently there in the thigh. Usually it will not be making any problem, only a cosmetic complaint. It is known to produce a problem for the cosmetic aspect. Varicose vein will look like this tortuous dilated vein, and this is the appearance of lipodermatosclerosis that we have already discussed. Sometimes there can be thrombosis of the superficial veins, and this is the typical appearance of that varicose ulcer, and sometimes the patient may get intense itching and excoriation and scaling and VP skin lesion. This is what is called varicose eczema. Confirmation is by Doppler study of the venous system of the lower limb, ultrasound examination of the abdomen. Sometimes there can be a mass pressing on the iliac vein, or it can sometimes you have to resort to CT abdomen to see whether there is any obstruction to the inferior vena cava. Thank you for listening.